I thought it was my friend that got in bed with me, but I was wrong. I will apologize for the length ahead of time. Not sure how long this is going to turn out. Anyways, let's jump back to about 3.5 years ago. I was a senior in college and living with my boyfriend, one of my best friends, another really good friend, and his girlfriend, in a fairly large house we were renting near campus. Since we had an entire house and not just a small apartment, a lot of parties ended up happening at our place. Living in a college town, it was natural to have people at a college party that you may not know personally, but they may be a friend of a friend's. So, if ever I saw someone I didn't recognize or know at our house during one of our parties, I never gave it too much thought. On one particular night, I was pretty tired, so I went up to my room, ditched the party, and got in my bed to watch Friends by myself. My room was pretty big, and on one side was the entrance to walk past the other bedrooms, go down the stairs and into the living room area. On the other side of my room was a door that led to the garage. If you open the door, there's a sketchy sort of floor panel, not sure what else to call it. It's not by any means something strong enough where you should jump on it, and I'd be careful having too many people stand on it for fear that the wood would break and everyone would fall quite a distance, maybe about 8 or so feet to be honest. There is a ladder that led up to this platform, so if for some reason you were ever in the garage and need to come into my room without going all the way around, you could come up this ladder and through the door. At the bottom of the ladder was another door that was one of our entrances to the kitchen. Anyways, I was hanging out and watching Friends when this guy came up to my bedroom door. He was clearly drunk, college-aged, skinny, brown hair, and wearing really billowy orange MC Hammer pants. And even though he had that creepy drunken emptiness look in his eyes, I didn't think much of him coming up here, honestly. So I asked him, "What's up?" He told me he was just exploring the house and was curious as where the other door of my room led. He said he loved learning about how rooms connect to one another and the basic ins and outs of the houses you go into. What? I'm not sure why I didn't see this red flag. I said something along the lines of, "Oh, that door goes to the garage, which is entered in through the kitchen. But I'm going to bed, so good night." And he went back downstairs. Again, I did not know this guy, nor had I seen him before, but he didn't really look threatening, to be honest. And at the time, I had a house full of people downstairs, so I felt safe. That there were any reason for me to feel unsafe never even crossed my mind. Eventually, I fell asleep, but it must not have been too long, because I felt someone in my bed stroking my stomach. I figured it was my boyfriend and tried to fall back asleep. The stroking continued, and something in my mind said, "This just doesn't feel like my boyfriend's touch." Not only did it not feel like him, it was like I was being stroked lightly with a single finger, and my boyfriend didn't have long fingernails either, as he trimmed them on a regular basis, for hygienic purposes, but also for his job. So, I did what my instincts told me to do, which was to run my hands through this person's hair. At first, my heart sunk. My boyfriend had a really long hair and always wore it in a ponytail or bun. This person in my bed, however, had very short hair. My next thought was, what the hell, Cole? Cole is one of my friends I was living with at the time. He has short hair, and I wouldn't put it past him to get drunk enough to climb in bed and try to cuddle. I got up quickly, but calmly, peeling this individual off of me, and they were trying to pull me back and not saying a word in doing so. No words were being said at all, and this was all happening in the pitch black of my room. I finally made it up and headed downstairs to go tell Cole's girlfriend that, for some reason, her boyfriend is in my bed, and please try and get him out. As I walked downstairs, however, again, I felt my heart drop into my stomach as I saw Cole sitting on the couch with his girlfriend laughing. Thinking he somehow played a trick on me, being in a half-sleep daze and thus not connecting the dots, I asked him if he was just in my bed, to which he looked genuinely confused. Obviously, we both looked towards the staircase at that moment. And who comes strolling down but the guy with the orange MC Hammer pants? I immediately told my boyfriend and fled back up to my room, various friends and my boyfriend trailing behind trying to get more information. As I get to my room and flick on the light, I see that the door going to the garage is open, meaning I had literally told him how to get into my room without anyone noticing. I frantically told my boyfriend and our good friend Austin what had happened. Austin ran downstairs after this guy, who was just on his way out the door, and what they told me after coming back upstairs has haunted me ever since. The guy turned around to face Austin, and Austin could see the guy had his hand fumbling around his giant pants pockets. After a few angry back and forths and some questioning, Austin got him to the ground only to find that the guy had a knife in his pocket. And no, not a pocket knife, but a giant kitchen knife from our kitchen. When I felt a single sharp fingernail grazing my stomach, that was not a single sharp fingernail. Austin proceeded to punch the guy in the face before coming upstairs to tell me what had happened, and for the rest of the night after that, and many nights after that, I proceeded to feel scared out of my mind that he was going to come back through the garage. The following day, I made my boyfriend put a deadbolt on that door. I still get scared to sleep alone at night, and make sure to have all entrances and exits on lockdown, especially because I've actually seen that guy walking down the street or at the bar multiple times after this incident. I don't think he recognizes who I am. I'm just a nameless almost victim. What makes me sick to my stomach even more so is that I found out a few months later that I was about a month pregnant at the time this all happened, and she's now a beautiful 3-year-old. It terrifies me to this day to think what would have happened if I hadn't gotten up and ran downstairs. Edit. Oh, and I forgot to mention, when I asked who the hell invited this guy over, no one knew who he was. He was just some total stranger. Even weirder, he came with a friend that night, and the next day I was cleaning up in the kitchen, and who just waltzes into our house but this guy's friend? I asked, hello, can I help you? And he said, I forgot something here last night. He walks into our pantry, comes out with a paper bag, and just walks out the front door. I have no idea what was inside. Nearly chained to a bed. For reference, at the time of this happening, I was 5 years old, male. My family had, and still to this day, have a caravan on a fairly large caravan site in Cliphorse on the east coast of the UK. We used to go pretty much every weekend in the summertime, and I loved it. We knew pretty much everyone who had caravans in the near vicinity to ours. 2 caravans away was a fairly old man, Mike, around 60 years old at the time, I'd say, and his wife, who struggled to walk, etc. at the time. My dad and Mike were good friends, and had worked together at one stage. Because of this, we regularly went rounds to theirs and vice versa, and did a lot of things together whilst there. My memory of the day in question is pretty vague, as I was about 5 years old at the time, and my parents have been reluctant to fill me in on many of the other details. So, we were all sitting on Mike's balcony at the front of his caravan, and he decided to go in and make drinks. From what my parents have told me, he then asked me to go in and help make the drinks or help bring them out. Of course, I went in, and I remember the exact moment when he put his hand over my mouth. I was just getting cups from one of the low-down shelves, and felt his hand go over my mouth in a classic horror story type of way, to stop you screaming. At first, I can still remember thinking he was just messing around, and we did that sort of thing often, and I'm pretty sure Mike had some sort of military background, so I assumed it was a joke. But then he started leading me through towards the back of his caravan. My memory is very vague of what went on in the next few moments. I'm not really sure if I briefly passed out, because at that moment he still has his hand covering my mouth. But the next memory I have is my dad barging through the door, smashing Mike against the wall, grabbing me, and running out of the caravan at the time. I had no idea what was going on, but I've recently learned he had chains set up on the bed. Every time I think about it now, I get chills, but still wonder why he would attempt something like that when both of my parents and my older brother were sitting just meters away. My dad says he got us all back to the caravan and then stormed back. I don't remember any of this, nor does my brother, but my mom has told me the exact same story. And then by the time he got back, Mike had managed to get his wife in the car and they sped off. They left their caravan unlocked, left all their possessions, etc. My dad says they never called the police because he wanted to beat Mike up, and I fully believed him. Even now at 62, he could easily take someone out. From what my mom has since told me, they, Mike, and his wife, never came back to that caravan, and it was replaced soon after with another. We still have our caravan, although now, with me and my brother living away, we only go a few times a year, but looking back, this was one of the only 2 times in my life when I've been in serious danger. So, even if for your own safety, Mike, let's not meet again. A bed for the night. When I was about 12 years old, my great uncle John came from Ukraine to visit us in Canada. He had a lot of stories, but this was the one that stood out. In the late 1960s, John was traveling by train from his village to another to visit family. He had to change trains at one point and was dropped off at what amounted to a platform in a hut in the middle of nowhere. There was no one else at the station, and other than a dirt road that led off into the surrounding woods, there was nothing there. He waited for some time, but no train came. It was winter, and getting colder and darker, and just about the time he started worrying about a place to stay and some food to eat, an old woman appeared out of the twilight. She asked if he was waiting for such and such a train, and when he said he was, she said it wouldn't be along until the following day. She asked if he needed a bed for the night, and offered him a meal and room at her house, which she said was about an hour's walk from the station. Lodging with locals was more or less the standard when traveling in this part of the USSR, and Great Uncle John wasn't looking forward to a hungry night on a cold platform, so he was glad to accept her offer. He took his suitcase, and they set off together down the dark road into the forest. It was more than an hour away, more like 2, and by the time they arrived at the woman's small, 2-story house, John was tired and hungry. They went inside, and the woman lit some oil lamps and warmed some borscht for them. It was the first time John was able to see the woman clearly, and was a bit startled to realize that the old woman was actually a man. Not wanting to pry, and too tired to care, John finished his soup and asked where he would be sleeping. She led him up the stairs to a tiny room with a window that contained a single bed and nothing else. He thanked her, they said good night, and she closed the door. Then she locked it, leaving him in the dark. Somewhat creeped out by this, John called to her, but she didn't answer and he heard nothing else. Figuring he would deal with it in the morning, and that she was probably done it by mistake, John set his suitcase down and laid on the bed, deciding to make the best of it and get some sleep. Before he could fall asleep, though, he felt the urge to pee, and got out of bed, hoping to find a chamber pot or something he could pee in. He got onto his hands and knees, and began to feel under the bed in darkness, thinking that's where the pot would be if there was one. Instead, he found a body. Nope, Great Uncle John said, and went right to the window to see if he could exit the door that way. It was nailed shut. He knew that if he remained in the room, he was probably a dead man, but if he broke the window and tried to get out that way, there was a good chance that the old woman, and who knows who else was there, would hear him and come into the room before he could get away from all of this. So he did the only thing he could. He pulled the body from under the bed, heaved it onto the mattress and covered it with a blanket. Then he got under the bed and waited. Sure enough, about an hour later, he heard footsteps coming up slowly the stairs, and then towards the room. The lock clicked, and the knob turned slowly. In the gloom, John saw someone move towards the bed. Then he heard several terrific and sickening thuds. The person had bashed the body on the bed with a large crowbar, which they then dropped onto the floor right in front of John. There was silence. Then the person went out of the room, and the door was shut again. The footsteps went down the stairs, and then there was silence again. John moved out from under the bed, took the crowbar, and was able to slowly pry the window open. He didn't say, but I imagine he was shitting bricks the whole entire time. When the window was up, he threw his suitcase out, then dove through himself, not caring what was below him, only worried about what was behind. He landed without too much injury, and began to run into a field behind the house, towards some lights in the far distance. It turned out to be a highway, with some military and transport trucks on it, and John was able to get a ride to another village, where he could catch a train. He didn't bother reporting what had happened to the authorities, since at that time in the USSR, there was a distinct chance he would have been the one who got into trouble. He just thanked God he escaped, and decided that the next time he traveled to visit relatives, he would take another way. I found a dude under my mom's bed. Hello. A friend introduced me to this Reddit, and I decided to share one of the most scarring encounters I've ever experienced. I'm not that old, but I do have a few. Please excuse any spelling or grammar mistakes, as I am not a native speaker. So, this took place in July, so almost 2 months ago. My family rented this nice one-story house in the outskirts of a sea town, and since it was on the side of a huge hill, we got a breathtaking sight of the sea. The house itself was a bit isolated from the other buildings of the residential area, since it was not directly on the street, but surrounded by trees. The master bedroom was quite small, with a king-size bed at the center, and a big closet in front of it. The window directly on the backyard, where we hung our clothes to dry, had a ridiculously low and easy-to-climb fence, which went directly into the woods. When my brothers were there, we would climb out of the window and into the woods, just to feel like kids again. It was really hot, which I can't stand, so I always left every window open to let a nice draft in. I know, I'm naive, but I did it only during the daytime in broad daylight and with other people at home. My brothers and dad couldn't be there because they had to work during weekdays, so it was just me and my mom. My grandma, instead, stayed in a hotel in the center of the town. I was on my period for a whole week, and I didn't feel like going to the beach. So my mom, just because you're 18 and you're an adult now, agreed to leave me home alone so she could go with my grandma. Of course, I didn't want to stay alone, so I called a close friend of mine, almost boyfriend to be honest, who happened to stay in that same town for the holidays, Ray. So he came over, bring some weed, and I was really excited to try it, since I never smoked weed or pot or anything like that. We were staying on the balcony, enjoying our smokes and the view, chatting quietly, when I heard a soft crashing sound, as if someone fell on one of the many carpets we had there. When I mentioned it, Ray laughed it off, saying that I'm hearing things, and that's normal with drugs. But I was pretty sure of my hearing, which never fails and is exceedingly good, I gotta say. So he replied, "Maybe it's your cat?" We both knew I couldn't bring my cat on vacation with me, and then I had to stay at hometown, but we searched for it anyways, laughing like idiots. Ray opened the kitchen cupboard, screaming, "I'm gonna find that little shit way before you." I went into the master bedroom and opened the closet, giggling, something like, "Here, kitty, come up now, stop hiding." Then I kneeled and looked under the bed. There was a dude, laying on the ground, and staring at me wide-eyed. I'm pretty sure time stopped, as well as my heart. I have no fucking idea what kept me from screaming at the top of my lungs, but I got up, patted out the room, and shut the door behind me. My mind was trying to process what I'd just seen. I never let go of the handle. I think my knuckles turned white at some point. Ray patted over, giggling, but he went dead serious as he looked at me. I told him there was a guy under Mom's bed. He thought I was hallucinating and tried to joke about it, but I grabbed my phone and dialed my mom's number. Later on, he told me he had understood I was serious, only when he saw my hands shaking like bitches and my fingers having a hard time dialing. When my mom picked up, I sounded so cold and controlled that it gives me chills whenever I think about it. I told her I was with Ray, and that we had found an intruder. My mom arrived in a span of 5 minutes, I think. And not much after, the cops arrived too. I think she called them because me and Ray stayed still in front of the building in silence. It was agony. They didn't find anyone, of course. My mom noticed a pair of panties missing from the clothes hanging out, but aside from that, there were no other signs of intrusion. The cops had a hard time believing us because of the smell of weed. Of course, Mom gave me a huge scold after that. We never heard from them about the case. I'm sure I wasn't hallucinating because he was there, and I remember every single detail of his face and how he held his breath. Me and Ray jokes about it sometimes, but I'm pretty sure he's creeped out too. Needless to say, I don't keep windows open anymore if there isn't any screening. So, weird dude hiding under my mom's bed. Let's not meet.